We live.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for our third couple for the Black Love series and Ode to Valentine's Day. And we've been learning so much, and we're going to continue to learn as we talk to our third couple and then our fourth couple coming. So keep staying tuned for this great venture that we're on. As you may already know, I am Dr. Tay, also known as Hey Dr. Tay. And I am joined today by my amazing collaborator. I don't know what side of the screen I'm looking.
One of these days.
Mr. Joseph Ward, who is an author, podcast host, and just an amazing initiative starter. He's so amazing in a lot of things he does. And I'm so glad I was able to drag him along the way with my key ideas.
I'm happy to be here. We've actually been having fun. This is our second series that we've done. You ask good questions, so the energy is good. I enjoy collaborating with you. And this Black Love series, it makes sense because we're two Black people who love being Black, and we want to make sure that we're a part of promoting what true Black love is all about. We tied up the negative narratives, and we have these mediums to create our own narratives. So why wait for somebody else to do it when we can do it? So that's why we are happy to be here.
Look, you said it better than I would, Joe. See, and you should have started the show. But today we have another amazing couple, as I stated earlier. We have the Stuckeys.
Yes.
Which consists of Mrs. Adrian and Mr. Jason Stuckey. As you notice, I always say the woman first. Bias.
Around the
world. Right. And they're going to tell us so much. I'm so excited to dive into this. So I guess I'll start off with the first question. And we always like to start off with who you are as an individual. So, of course, ladies first.
Who I am as an individual. I like this question. It's a little different from like, what do you do? But I think as an individual, I'm a very family-oriented person. I love my family. I love my family, which are people you get to choose as family.
Yes.
And I am an environmental health and safety attorney at Duke Energy, which is a utility company here in Cincinnati. And I'm just excited to be here. I love talking about experiences that people don't talk about, because that's how we grow and that's how we hopefully stay together forever and ever. So we're really excited to talk to you guys. To your point, we've seen a lot of bad marriages and a lot of miscommunication.
Right.
And so we are excited to talk about, even though I can't believe it'll be 3 years soon, being married.
Congratulations.
And we are still young in our journey compared to a lot of people. But I think we've really found a way to make it work. And so I'll stop there.
Who I am as an individual, I'm really easygoing, kind of down to earth person who likes to kind of relax. I'm an avid lover of sports. I'm also a husband as an individual as well too. And then in my career, I'm also a lawyer as well too, where I do labor and employment work representing school districts here in Ohio. So I'm excited to be here today to share our experiences, to provide any advice that we can provide if folks want to take it as advice. And so excited to be here.
Right. Now that's it. It's definitely exciting what both of you do. So I want to start with both of you, and we can go with Adrian and then Jason. So when you're young, you're growing up, you have all these aspirations. Our imagination is very wild, and we want to go from being teachers to firemen to police officers to astronauts. So was being a lawyer something that you both wanted to do as a child, or along your journey, how did that come about where you say, okay, I want to be a lawyer, and then actually pursuing the careers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say I didn't hop out the womb I'm gonna be a lawyer, y'all. But I don't even know if I play with lawyer toys. Your parents got your toys, right?
Right.
I don't know. But I do think as I progressed, so I would say in college is when I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing. And late in college, so I was in my junior year. Now my parents had always been whispering in my ear, you argumentative, you debate, you're gonna be a lawyer. But I think that was more of like, we see what you can do and what your mind is doing, and we channel that energy to something that, one, you'll be good at, and let's make some money. So
Right.
I think it was a bit of both. So my parents have kind of always been that way. And, you know, it's like, I'm going to do my own path, but I am exactly where I want and need to be. And I think, you know, God's counsel also is why I have led, because I didn't choose environmental law. I tell many people that I went to school thinking I was going to be or law school, thinking I was going to be a criminal defense attorney, to be out here getting them. And then I was like, I cried The Little Mermaid. That's not going to work. Like, it's going to work for my mental health. There are other things, other ways that you can give to those causes or give of your time. But I was like, I can't do that day in and day out. So that was something that I learned early on in law school, thankfully, and kind of just fell into environmental law. Worked for the Natural Resource Defense Council my second year because one of my line sisters worked there. And again, I think it's who you know, right? And you don't know what you want to do until you actually get into it. And for me, environmental health and safety is like, I'm a nerd, like Dr. Tay. And so I love like the intersect between science, math, or engineering and the law, which is kind of what it brings together.
Well, for me, it's probably a little different. I think I knew for a while that I wanted to be an attorney.
Okay.
My parents always told me, like, Jason, you like to argue, you like to reason too much, so this is what you need to do. And I said, no, that's not what I wanted to do. And then I saw the movie Jerry Maguire. I probably was like 11 or 12, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to I want to be able to have the opportunity to like go to all of the games for free and to like negotiate all the deals and be behind the scenes. So like, this is what I want to do. And my mom was like, well, you know, I think this was her way of pushing me to be a lawyer. She's like, well, you know that most sports agents have a law degree. And I was like, no, I didn't know that, but if that's what it takes, then that's what I'm going to do. So I got involved in this program here in Cincinnati that really for Black kids who are interested in becoming lawyers, and you got placed in corporations and law firms. And I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely what I wanted to do. But then the sports agent thing kind of dwindled when I realized that there were so many different aspects that you could do when practicing law.
Right.
So
shout out to Swell.
Swell, yeah, summer work experience in law is what the program's called here in Cincinnati. And so jumped in on that, and I was like, you know, there are other things I could do, and then kind of matriculated through the program. And in my career, we'll talk about this, where Adrian and I kind of met was at the Attorney General's office. I started there. And I had to stop, and then Adrian moved to Cincinnati, where I'm from, and so I ended up taking a job down here before getting the job that I have now. But you know, I'm certain that I'm doing what I should be doing, and I enjoy like interacting with people. So the fact that my practice has a lot of people interaction, even though sometimes people do a lot of crazy things, and that's what I deal with. But it's still good, and I really do enjoy it.
Right. So I enjoyed that, and I wanted to make sure I give a follow-up question to what you both have stated in reference to your careers and stuff. Because one part of the Black Love series is to also expose individuals to these different types of careers we may not know about. Before, I mean, of course, Adrian and I grew up together. So being her friend, I've learned about what an environment, what it means to be a lawyer, and specifically like the different areas that you could be a lawyer in. So can you talk more and probably provide like an example, both of you, as far as being a lawyer in your particular area? What does that exactly mean? Because I think every time we think of lawyers, we're thinking, you're going to get us off on these tickets that I got.
Right.
I'm not going to jail for that.
Right.
That's a great point. So do not call us if you're in jail, because we cannot help you. The first thing I would say, listen, you need to call a lawyer, and it ain't me. So that's number one. So what I do though is I would likely represent, you know, your employer if you are showing up late to work and they say, hey, you know what, Dr. Tay's not following the policies, and so we're going to have to do something with her based on what does the policy say in order for us to maybe, suspend her, dock her pay. So that's kind of what I do. I also get involved. Actually, like, wait a minute, that's not what I do. I also get involved if an employee files some type of discrimination claim against their employer, and represent the employer in court, and dealing with those issues. And then the final aspect of what I do is dealing with like what we call labor issues. So those are issues where you hear about, teacher strikes or teacher contract negotiations.
Right.
Oftentimes represent the school districts as their chief negotiator when we're negotiating a new teacher collective bargaining agreement or contract, try to prevent those strikes from happening. So that's what I do. And that's all you can call me about. Don't call me about anything else related to
it. That's funny. So environmental health and safety, people often look cross-eyed. They're like, I don't know what you talk about, girl. So what I do is I represent Duke Energy on the compliance side. So one, I make sure we're complying with the environmental law. That's the bare minimum, right? Make sure our machines are working and have the right equipment. And people might not know, so EPA and all the state environmental protection agency and all the state environmental protection agencies give companies, manufacturers, permits to pollute up to a certain extent, right? So there are certain guidelines that you have to follow when it comes to air, water, waste. And so where your waste goes is important. If it's hazardous, then that's got to go into a certain landfill. If it's just what we call solid waste, which is our lower, you think of the trash man comes to pick up your trash, that's solid waste, right? Usually it's not hazardous. It doesn't have anything that's going to stick around for years and years and years.
Right.
So that is what I do when I make sure they're on the straight and narrow with the environmental side. Sometimes we have to work with the agencies if we have weird issues come up all the time where, our machine is not working and maybe it's emitting a little more pollution than we thought. We need to get them involved quickly and know what our corrective action plan is going to be in order to, hopefully not get penalties, but keeping in mind, we know if there's a violation that could happen. But environmental penalties are like real big. And so we are always wanting to work with the agency once we get our hands around a situation. And then the other side of the house is health and safety, which I feel like my last 2 years I've been swamped with health and safety work. And so what that means is someone gets hurt, someone unfortunately lose their life because maybe they weren't following all the safety rules, or maybe there was this crazy thing that happened. For instance, there was a case where a man cut his fall protection while he was on a pole with a chainsaw. This had never happened, guys. Like this, none of the utilities had anything like this happen.
Right.
And so OSHA, the Occupational Safety Health organization, they come in and they'll inspect the area, they'll inspect the incident, and then they decide if they're going to issue what we call citations, which are basically violations of the law. And so I do a lot of that work. That's not my everyday work, thank goodness, but we've had a couple of fatalities since I've been there, and those are really, really tough days. As Jason knows, it usually starts early in the morning because these things happen at 6 a.m. when someone's run into a pole and they're replacing the electricity. It's just really tough to hear because the details are never, ever interesting. I mean, not interesting. It's always sad, right? It's always really, really sad. You think about those families. And at the end of the day, we want all our people to go home safely. We don't want that's number one. And so working through those issues, making our organization better, where do we have certain gaps? That's where I come in, and I like to come in at the beginning, right before anything like that happens. But that's mostly what I do for the company.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I got to follow up to that. And I do want to say this is a safe space for nerds because we like the coolest nerds on earth up in here. So we represent. But I think what both of you do is very, very, very important, and it's very critical, especially to our community dealing with labor and environmental things, because oftentimes we overlook those areas, but they impact how we exist on a regular basis.
Right.
And so my day job is HIV/AIDS, and it's an emotional roller coaster every day. Like just this week, we're trying to prevent at least 3 young Black men from contracting HIV, and just interacting with them. It can be emotionally draining. So when you have those days where your strings are pulled, your emotional strings are pulled, how do you come home and like decompress and get the stress off and not be able to take those emotions to bed or even into the next day?
I think it's important, and COVID has, I think, changed this a little bit. It's a lot easier since we're both working from home.
Right.
Just to be like, all right, if I want to talk to Adrian about something that's going on at work, I can do that. I can pop up there and do that, which is nice, as opposed to before you'd have to wait until you got home to talk about it, and it could kind of bleed into the night.
Right.
And I think on those difficult days, what I try to do, at least, I don't know if I've told you this, but what I try to do is I'm not saying that I always do this, but at a certain time, you just gotta let it go and talk about other stuff, because work is work. Today, there are far more important things, to me at least, in life than work. So, you kind of decompress, you get it out of your system, but you don't let it take over your life or your day or the time that we get to spend together, because that time's important. So
right.
Not to let it bleed into other aspects of the life. But I think it's important to talk about it, let it out, and try to move on from it.
That's so interesting. I did not think he was going to say that. I thought he was going to be like, TV. Because I'm like, I would watch Love Island. No, I'm even a really TV person. I'm a TV person with Jason. So we watch things together, but rarely am I watching a show without him, because I'd rather, I'm one of those people that still gets Essence magazine. I'm a magazine reader. And I think in 2021, there's not a lot of magazine readers, especially at our age.
Right.
Where Dr. Tay is like, what? But that's
everything's on the internet.
I love to read. I like to read things that are a little less heavy. Like, I read a heavy book in January earlier this year, and I was like, okay, the next one cannot be that. And it does help that now with COVID, we are in the house. So I'm like working with my coworker downstairs. Yes. I'm like, Jason, guess what happened? and so I think I piggyback off of Jason. I haven't done it in a while, but meditation, Jason has started meditating in the last, and I have found breathing exercises to be so helpful during the day, but I have definitely lost track of that. And so I think I need to, you're reminding me that I need to bring that back. But the way that if you just take 5 minutes, that can make such a difference in such a busy day. And I mean, I don't know what your job is like, but I have been meetings back to back to back all day, right? And now they're virtual meetings, right? So it's great, at least I can just be professional up top and party down the bottom. But it's still it's draining. And so I try to make sure my meetings have at least 30 minutes in between. It don't always work out like that because people don't care about your time. But I would say breathing in between, walking during the summer. I'm not walking in this cold.
I'm glad.
That helped. That's why Dr. Tay was like, you need a dog. And I'm like, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and I will say that meditation thing, I mean, when Adrian said that, there were periods of time where I was having trouble sleeping because work was becoming pretty difficult. The meditation really worked wonders. So I would highly, highly recommend that. It's excellent. Something else that we've done that's actually right behind this screen is we've been working on this 1,000-piece puzzle. So Adrian, you're a big TV person, but I certainly recognize that there are times you can't be watching TV all the time. So we've done this puzzle together. We're working through it. We're struggling. It's been fun. It's been
challenges.
Good, and it keeps your mind going and kind of keeps your mind sharp.
Yeah. Right. Yes. So So I'm going to rewind it a little bit because Jason, you were hitting on it, but we didn't go into, and y'all know I'm nosy. I already know most of your story, but I want the other people that are watching to be able to know all the details as well, because I think you have an amazing story as to how you met and, you know, the longevity of your relationship, and then when you decided to tie the knot, how you did those things and so on. So please provide us the story.
Yeah, so let me tell you the story from Jason's perspective.
I was waiting on that.
So this is what happened. So we, when I was studying for the bar, that would have been 2013, the summer of 2013.
He's a year ahead of me, so I'm 2014.
Yes. One of Adrian's law school classmates who went to Notre Dame with her was studying in Cincinnati. And we were in like this big group chat or what have you. And so I met, her name is Brittany Brantley. We'll call her our matchmaker. And so I met Brittany. And then fast forward to like December of 2013, Brittany had put Adrian in contact with me and tried to connect us because Adrian was going to be starting at the Attorney General's office in Columbus the year afterwards. And she did not know anybody in Columbus. So Adrian decided to slide in my DMs on
Another DM story
on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, Mr. Stuckey, I am going to be moving to Columbus, and I, just wanted to know if we could connect. I would love to get to know you." And I responded back, and she put her number in there. And it's funny. I looked so hard for this message, and I think LinkedIn deleted it, or Adrian deleted it somehow. I cannot wait. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna have to get right. But anyway, so then we fast forward to the summer of 2014, and I think Adrian had let me know that she had moved into Columbus, and I don't know if you were looking for a piece of furniture or I was moving. So I was moving from my old apartment to a new apartment, and I had this coffee table that I was just not going to do anymore. So I said, "Hey, if you want this, it's free, it's yours." And so then she came to my door, and I remember what she was wearing. She had a white T-shirt on, and she had these green Notre Dame booty shorts, is what they call them. I was on the back, and so she was going to have me put this coffee table into her moving truck, and then she was going to drive away. And I was like, "Well, how are you going to get it out?" So I went with her to take her to the apartment. And then I guess you could say the rest after that kind of just history.
Absolutely. I don't know. I took the LinkedIn part. I'm like, was it DMs?
It was definitely a DM. Adrian was sliding in the DMs before it was a thing.
The original.
Yeah.
But yes, and I mean, how I don't know. It's divine intervention, because apparently, like, Black women finding a husband in Columbus is like 1%. I was like, wow. I like read that somewhere. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna find nobody here, am I? But Jason, like, our first meeting was him giving me something. Like, that's really powerful. Like, he's definitely a giver. In spirit, right? And so I could see that even early on. And I remember having a conversation with my mom. I'm gonna try not to cry because I'm one of those emotional people. But I was having a conversation with my mom maybe after our third date, and we're not even gonna talk about where he took me for our first date. But I remember saying to my mom, like, I really, really like this man, and I could see marrying him. And she was like, "Where's my daughter? What have you done with her?" Because I just have always been kind of like, look, I'm here for my career, and that's on that. Right. But when someone comes into your life and when you're not looking, that's when it really happens. And I think for me, that's kind of cliche, but that is what happened. Absolutely. So yeah, we went to Skyline Chili. I don't know. Y'all probably aren't even familiar with that, but it's a Cincinnati thing. Cincinnati people love it. And I'm like, when I got my meal for free, I was like, did you do this on purpose?
I didn't know that. I was prepared to pay, and they said it's free. I was like, even better.
I was like, wait a minute. I was like, that's also what I found out, that my husband is frugal, which is great because I'm frugal too.
They are. So I'm gonna give a follow-up question based on that. So I know that you did a special already on this, but I wanted you to talk about how you saved so much with your wedding and about the wedding day and so on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Okay, so 2014 we met, and then we dated till dated 2016. We got engaged, and then 2017 we got engaged, and 2018 we got married in March. And so it was very important that we not go into more debt, I should say, for our wedding, because we have future goals, right? Like, we want to build on what we have. And thankfully, we had moved from jobs that weren't as much money early on, but were astronomically more money later. Like, I moved to a law firm, Jason moved to a law firm. And so that helped us save a lot of our money. We're one of those people, we live below our means, right? I know I can live probably off, but way less than what I make. But we stacked away so much cash for the wedding. Yeah, we were like, it was automatic save. Of course, our parents helped. That conversation was awkward for me. My mom is always like, oh, I'm going to help. But I think, my parents had unfortunately gone through a divorce, I would say shortly before we got married. And so there was tension between my mom, my dad, and tension, honestly, between our me and my brother and my dad. And so that was hard to ask, but I credit all my money, I don't know, sense and you need to save, you need to do this, you need to 401k XYZ to my dad, because he is absolutely a money genius. And he's like, time is what I don't have, but time is what you have. Right. And so it was very hard to ask him, okay, Dad, can you help with our wedding? Because my dad didn't come to my law school graduation because it was so tense between our parents. And so, so that was really hard, but it turned out to be great because he was so helpful. Both our parents were so helpful. I've had my aunt create a card box. She built it out of cereal boxes. It was the most beautiful thing ever. Just hacking into people's gifts. And people love helping, right? I have so much family. Jason's it was half, it was 80% Adrian's family. And then I was okay, I guess I can invite 20 friends. So it was just building on community, right? Which is always so important to African Americans. And there were ways that we cut costs on, suits.
Yeah. I think what we started with, which was helpful, was we started with a spreadsheet and a budget.
Yes.
We were this is what we know we can do, the numbers, and we projected it out. This is what I like to do. Adrian says I like to spend money we don't have in a way that I like to project it out so I know what we will have in the future and say, hey, that money is going to be gone. And so we looked at it from March of 2017 to March of 2018. How much could we possibly save? And looked at that. That was, and we were really realistic. It wasn't just all right, this is a aspirational goal. No, this was realistic. If we automatically took it out of our paychecks and it went into an account, this is what we could save. And then when we looked at that, we then made a determination on what was the venue we could use. If we needed to ask our parents for money, what that needed to look like. And then I think if you have concrete numbers, that's really helpful. Using family gift. Adrian's family came in huge. A photographer. We got a good DJ for a good price. Wasn't a family person, but it was a recommendation. We also had a day of planner who was amazing. I'll tell anyone who is going to get married in the next year or so, or even in the future, that is probably the best money I think I've ever spent. Just makes your day go very well. And it's really not terribly expensive too. And then the venue was great. And then we picked a venue where we could bring our own alcohol, because that significantly reduced the cost on that space. And so what we did was we bought the alcohol from a liquor store here in Cincinnati. And then we drove to Virginia and took it with it.
And the wine was from Aldi, y'all.
The wine was from Aldi. No, but it was good. It was good.
They was
Black.
So I mean, we say all that to say because I think we were reading something where there are a good amount of folks who take out a loan for their wedding, which to me is completely setting off on the wrong foot. And so 2 final things with that. So included in our wedding budget, we also included our honeymoon. Mm-hmm. So we knew that we wanted that to be debt free as well too. And then the final thing, and this was probably the most important to us, was we did not want to start our marriage in debt because of a wedding, because there are more important things. A house is more important than to us a wedding. So one day it's great, it's a great experience, and we love our wedding.
Yes,
we do.
And
but,
Dr. Tay was a part of that.
Yes, but there was. I think that's something to always keep in mind as well too.
Absolutely, it's not about the day; it's about the marriage.
Right.
And Jason didn't talk. We actually did marriage counseling with pastor here, our pastor at our church, because we see it's like top 4 things that like destroy marriages. And we've also seen our parents and we see the same things. It's like communication, money. People don't read about money. And then I think the other one is like, child rearing or how to raise your kids. We're not there yet, but we hope to be there. And it's like, if we can get on the right foot about money and communication now, then we're going to build on that foundation later.
Right.
And that's so huge. Knowing that your spouse, and we are kind of the same cloth, that we're savers, but homegirl like to go to Bath and Body Works. Okay. So I'm gonna have my little budget, or I like to buy, I'm like, ooh, I want it in essence. I'm gonna buy that. I love supporting my businesses. Like that's kind of buy these little trinkets, but that is a part of the budget, right? Like that is, and we have an understanding. Jason's purchases are bigger, but fewer, like farther in between. He's like, I'm gonna get a Peloton today. I'm like, okay. I'm like, he's like one of those people that'll stay for that. He's like, all right, I want a freaking $2,000 bike. And I'm gonna be like, I think I'll get $100 things. No, but that is good to know, because I mean, just as an example, my mom and my dad were opposites. My mom is a spender and my dad is a saver, but like they were both bad. So they were both at the extreme, I would say. Of course, my mom's always like, I know how to use money. I'm like, I know, Mom, but you are a spender that's what you're wanting to do. And she won't, she's like, budget. But my dad saves too much, where then you can't go on vacation. You don't all you do is work. So that's not good. That's not good.
Right.
And so I think we're looking at our parents like, oh, okay, we don't want that. I would rather talk you through it and be like, look, I'm gonna buy this, okay? How are we gonna get here? Or maybe not today. Let's do it in the future. Talking through those issues makes a world of difference, I think.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we could talk about the money aspect all day. I mean, my parents were both spenders. Hopefully they don't see this, because they're both spenders. And so to me, that taught me like that's not how I want to live my life, because it eventually goes away. And the other thing too, which is really funny, because if you know Adrian, she can be very strong and bullheaded.
Me?
And so one of the things we were talking about after we got engaged was, whether or not we were going to have a joint account versus a separate account. And so Adrian looked at me and said, there is no way in the world that I'm going to have a joint account and we're going to have our money be separate. And so I said to her, I think that there are a lot of benefits of having a joint account. It builds good communication because you have to talk through purchases. And I think it provides, it also provides another level of intimacy, because you have to talk about these things together in this process. And there really ain't no secrets, because I know what she's spending and she knows what I'm spending. And so she actually came around to it. She's like, I can see the benefits of it. I like to say, whenever I'll tell Adrian something, and then she talks to somebody else, and then she eventually comes around to what I said. But she gets there. She eventually gets there. And I think for us, I mean, that's really been, really, really helpful in our relationship, because we'll sit down on Saturdays and we'll talk about, hey, what's going on with the budget this week? Let's talk through this. Mm-hmm. And then I think it also bleeds into other parts and things that we want to do and our hopes and dreams and wishes. So, you know, everybody's different. Everybody has, what they want to do, and everybody's opinions on money are different. But I think it's for us, it's been helpful.
That's incredible. Like, I'm sitting back here, I'm taking notes and stuff. So I need a table that I need to get rid of. I need a moving truck. I need all those things. I need a good bank account. All right, I'm taking my notes. But okay, so you all have a very realistic view and very realistic relationship. It's not some, hey, we met and we just fell in love happily ever after with no details in between, right? Because that's what we saw growing up. Like, the Disney Channel just messed people's lives up, right? So how did you all avoid the fairy tale love, the stereotypical fairy tale love? How did you avoid that and would be able to come into your relationship with realistic expectations and build upon that?
That's a really good question.
But I think before we were engaged, I think it was just being open and being willing to talk about stuff. We would oftentimes have really good, deep conversations about anything. I think talking about both of our relationship with our parents and how both of our parents are divorced and kind of talking through some of those issues. I think for me, at least, it was, you've seen stuff that didn't work. And I think oftentimes people think that that's something that can scar you. But I took it as I saw what didn't work and I saw where some of the fractures were, where the cracks were in that relationship. So you use that to say, well, I don't want things to go that way. So let's stop it before we get there. I think we would have really good conversations around that. And I think our premarital counseling was excellent. And I think one of the things that we talked about were what you said, Joe, expectations. And so one of the things the pastor said were, what are your expectations of Adrian once you get married? Because oftentimes when you get into a marriage, people don't talk about their expectations. They think Adrian expects me to take out the trash. I know that. So if I do not take out the trash, that is something that is going to get on her nerves. And that's a small thing, but it's good to talk about what your expectations on a relationship, because oftentimes that's where you're going to have crosswise.
Right.
So I really, this sounds so cliche, but it's true. And I think that oftentimes we don't sit and talk about our issues. We keep stuff from each other. And so communication really is key, and being okay to be vulnerable, because I think people get into a relationship and they think, you could be with someone 10 years and you're afraid to be vulnerable with that person. And that's not going to lead to growth. So I think that we have this understanding that in order for this to work, we're going to have to communicate. We're going to have to be vulnerable. If not, it's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah, and I would piggyback off of that. So I think so anyone who knows me knows that I'm pretty much an optimist when it comes to life. Like, I try to have the rose-colored glasses, like, oh, maybe there's a silver lining. But I think when it came to relationships, I was always a pessimist. Always like, something's off about you, and not always looking inwardly, and also knowing that I had issues. So I told Jason early on, like, if I get upset, I will not talk to you, because that's what I saw. And when my dad would get upset at my mom, and that would go like days. And I was like, something is off. This is crazy. But I'm not that extreme, but I was like, I will get silent. And Jason knows that about me because I told him this. And I don't know, early on I got mad about something silly. I can barely remember. I'm like, what? But I remember Jason being relentless. He would be like, hi, yeah, you want to talk to me? You're going to talk to me. Me. I couldn't even like not talk to him without smiling. So he knows that like knowing what your partner needs to is important. You know that if they tell you, or you see it after patterns. And so I think being pessimistic led me to be like, okay, these are the things that's going on in my life, and here's why I act like this. Please check, because I might not even see it in myself. Because we become our parents, right? It's like what's that?
Yeah.
Geico commercial? It might not be Geico, but it's one of those commercials.
I know what you're talking about.
Amazing.
Yes, you do. Everyone has a silent button. So like we become our parents, and I know I'm cranky every day. Every time I make a list, I'm like, that's my mama.
Yeah.
And every time I look at my bank accounts, every freaking day, I'm like, that's my dad. So figuring, like he said, like communication. And so one interesting thing that our pastor did is we wrote a letter to each other, and we're only supposed to open it when it gets like really hard and we're not, like y'all are just not feeling each other. And so that letter has remained unopened for the last almost 3 years. Hopefully,
Right.
growing. But that's one of those, I think, intimacy things that you look back at what you wrote 3, 5, 7 years ago, and you're like, this is why I did this. This is why we love each other. Yes, circumstances have changed, and even you have changed, right? We change, I think, pretty often.
Right.
Convinced me with the 2 bank accounts. I mean the 1 bank account. But I think that is like realizing that you're going to transform and grow together.
Right.
Right.
But not going in thinking you're going to change someone, because that ain't
That's
gonna
not gonna
happen.
happen.
Right.
Right.
It happens when the person wants to change individually, not because you want them to change. So
Exactly. So let's talk about that a little bit. So one thing that Joe and I have been learning in the other couple interviews was, the fact that you come in as this individual and then you realize that you're still evolving as an individual, but you're also going to evolve together as a couple. What are some of those, hallmark moments that you think of when, you think of that particular topic, and then were there any challenges that you went through? This is kind of like a 2-3 part question. Sorry. Were there any challenges that you went through, and then how did you get past those moments in your relationship and in your development of yourself?
Man, all right. Well, to answer the first part of the question, and then see if I can get to the second part. So, looking at yourself as a couple as opposed to an individual, that letter was actually pretty groundbreaking for me, and something that I keep in mind always. So we were supposed to write the letter. Adrian will do whatever she's supposed to do at that minute. I have a slight procrastination. I think it's a family trait. I'm not going to blame it on myself. So it took me a little longer to draft the letter.
Right.
And so we came to a session of the marriage counseling. I didn't have the letter until the pastor said to me, he said, Jason, the fact that you did not do the letter, even though you probably had every good intention to do it and that you're going to do it, but he said, but that signifies to Adrian that you don't care about your relationship, which is not, obviously I care, but that's what it shows. And so you always have to think about that whatever you do and your actions always reflect on you two as a couple as opposed to you as an individual. And I think ever since that moment, that was kind of like a light for me to always think about that and always to have that in the back of my mind. And so obviously continuing to evolve with that, but that's really, really key and really, really important. I don't think I've ever told you that.
You did. I was like, I don't even remember that happening.
Well, so to the second part, a difficult moment, how we got through it. I was thinking about, that. And I think one thing that was probably a couple of things I think that have been difficult for us. One, I think we were long distance for a little bit. And so that was difficult. And that was before we got married. And it was, well, are we going to stay together? Adrian apparently had no doubt in her mind that we were going to stay together. But that was 6 months, but I think at that point in time I knew, so I ended up getting a job here in Cincinnati. But there have also been times where we've disagreed necessarily on job opportunities and whether or not one of us should pursue an opportunity or whether one of us believed that the employer was treating him right, so you needed to stay with that person, stay with that employer. And so I think that those have caused some tense moments between us, but I think that ultimately, once again, just kind of talking through some of those and trusting what we believe is best for us and working out for us.
Yeah. Man, that was a good Hallmark moment. Well, and I think the challenges that he brought up were definitely the ones that I thought through, because I have to oftentimes like think really hard about the last time I was like mad at Jason, which I think a lot of people are like, what?
Right.
But that's just, I don't know, that's just the nature of our relationship. I will say, he was playing Ella May's CD when it came out so many times. I was like enraged. I was like, I can't listen to this anymore because I hate when Ella May talks in between the albums, and I'm gonna punch him if he plays this album. I just don't know what was wrong with me. It was irrational. I was mad. Okay, that aside. I would definitely say that we get mad at each other. Well, I get upset at Jason because sometimes I'm like, Jason, you're like, you can do this. You need to leave them. You need more money. I take this because his mom also is like, she even told me, and she wrote me a really nice letter that I read on my wedding day. And I'm like tearing up thinking about it. But she was like, you're going to have to push Jason. Like, he can do phenomenal things, but you might have to push him. And so I think it's a little bit of that's in me. And then I'm already individually ambitious. I think together we're very ambitious, but I'm like, Jason, you can do this. Go screw them. Say, I'm leaving. Or if you don't get that money, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, but I'm like, I quit. But I think it's a part of wanting more for your partner, but also, it's always like, is it selfish? Like having to think about not just me, but us. And I'm trying to think when that happened, because that has definitely changed in our relationship. Even when we think about, so my utility company is based out of Charlotte. So everyone says, hey, you got to move to Charlotte if you want to advance. Right now, I'm cool in my career. I would like to be outside of headquarters doing my thing. But I mean, if that is something that we're really going to, pursue or think about as we are growing a family, it's like, that's going to be something that could cause tension. I mean, Jason loves Charlotte because he went to Johnson C. Smith. Okay. But it's different when you are moving an entire family, or his family is here, and so I think that has been a challenge, and I've had challenges leaving my nest, like from Virginia, and I think Jason sees that in me, like, I miss all my friends, I miss my family. I don't get to see my mom and dad often, and so. But, distance makes the heart grow fonder, allegedly. But I'm like, they forget me. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that has been a challenge for us together. Because Jason, has all his high school friends. And I'm like, and it's, he has his community. And then I can't be that mad, right? I brought him back.
Yes. And I think that's a good point, because I think that we both are invested in our careers, and it's more than likely going to come to a head at some point in time where someone's going to get a great opportunity and they have to, take a step back in their career because of that. So I think that certainly could cause some strife. But I think, once again, we talk about it. And if Adrian gets an opportunity to do something, I'm fully going to support her, especially if it's something where I can be a stay-at-home dad. So I'm completely on board with that.
Hey. See, we got to start the narrative, right? Wow, that's so cool. All right, so you all have great chemistry, the personalities, you all have that, and it seems like you all have a great time together. And to piggyback off what you were saying, healthy relationships should be the norm. We understand that, okay, most people we know, we got love and hip hop, all the Jerry Springer, more poet stuff we grew up on. I know in my personal life, my parents divorced when I was 5. I have only one memory of my parents actually interacting with each other. And so how did you all really set your overall boundaries for your relationship? And like you said, even in the point where you were in a long distance relationship, like how was you able to make that work and also be able to set the proper boundaries for your relationship to grow properly?
I'll let you go first on that.
What? I would say with the long distance thing. So we were about an hour and a half away from each other. So he was in Columbus, I was in Cincinnati. And according to Jason, he'd be like, it's really like an hour and 15 minutes. I'm like, well,
Didn't know how you drive.
Sure. But I think we didn't do every weekend. We probably did every other weekend. Just because it's tiring to be on the road, and Fridays are hard. Y'all know.
Yes.
Like, I just want to sleep. So I think one of the boundaries that we set early on is how much we share with our friends. And, we're not oversharers on social media. I think that is hard for people.
Yes, it is. It is.
I'm like, I definitely say I share more than even Jason. Jason like posts once a year. It's like our birthdays. So so I would say that was a boundary early on that we're like, okay, privacy is important, and you need to, we need to talk about what you're saying to your friends, because sometimes your friends get involved like you are, and it's like, that's not your significant other or your husband. So you chill. And people are so quick to judge, right? Because they love you and they're like, oh, I don't know if that, or they'll even judge you for like feeling a type of way. And they're like, you're perfect. And you're like, okay, no one's perfect, but clearly you need to get your shit together. So
okay.
I would say that was important in our boundaries, because we have a lot of friends. We have a lot of community and people around, but it's important to know that it's the two of you. And sometimes those boundaries were set with my mom too. So like, I love my mom. She is like my friend. She is my best friend, I would say. And so, and there's some things your mom don't want to hear about, and she gonna be like, stop. But I think that sometimes I even share too much with her, and it's like, okay, I gotta pull back. This is something we need to figure out first before I'm like, Mom, guess what he did? But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think that you hit all the key points. Is making sure that we come to each other first, instead of going to somebody else. And we actually did talk about this. I think Adrian had asked me the question, like, what would you feel uncomfortable with me sharing with one of my friends? And I said, I really, once again, go back to what I said at the beginning. I'm really easygoing. So I'm like, you can share with what you want to, but I would just hope that you share the same thing with me. Now, I mean, you may share it in a different way with your friends. I get that. But, as long as we're having a conversation about it, I'm fine with that. You need that outlet. You need to talk to your friends, because that's part of your friendship. So that's okay. But in terms of like with other people, maybe like outside of your friends, I mean, just being Adrian has male friends. I'm fine with that. That's fine.
We talked about that. That was I think that was an early conversation.
Yes. So and knowing where but we both know where the boundaries are with that. So being open and honest about that is key. And then I think that really leads to you can have those boundaries and be okay with them if you trust your partner. And goes very long with me. I trust Adrian 100%. So I have no concerns about that. And really, once again, I keep saying it, but it comes back to communication. You communicate, you talk about it. That I think it alleviates a lot of those concerns.
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry. I have this one question. I'm sorry, but this is for Jason, and the self-esteem in men is not often talked about. It's almost as if men don't have self-esteem sometimes. So, because you talked about the trust and not having a issue with her having male friends, because you all have communication, you have trust, but did it take you time to get there, or was your self-esteem already in the place? You had already worked on yourself before you all got married, or before you got serious in a relationship, to where she would say, okay, I have male friends, and you said, okay, it's not going to be something intimidating to me, but we are going to make sure we set our boundaries. Like, how did you get to that?
That's a really good question. I think for the most part, I was already there. I think the way that I look at it, this is going to sound really bad, but is that, I mean, she's with me. She's there with me. She's committed to me. Why am I worried about, the friends that she talks to on the phone or whatever? I don't care about it. At the end of the day, she's with me and she's sleeping in the bed with me. So at the end of the day, that's really what matters. And I think that I was at that place, when I was 25, 26, that I was comfortable in saying that. Now, at 22, 23, would I have been there? I don't know.
Right.
But I think that is really key, Joe. You have to know yourself, and you have to be comfortable enough with yourself first and secure with yourself first before you can be secure in a relationship like that. Mm-hmm. And I had I think I was to the point where I know who I am and I know what I can take, and so I was comfortable with that.
I appreciate that.
And I think that's huge, because a lot of the now when it comes to relationships, especially with you being like young and you're both successful in your careers and you still look amazing, right? You're not one of those couples that are like, okay, they're obviously together, I'm not even interested in them, so there's got to be people on the outside that are always looking. Even if you're not paying attention to them, there's going to be somebody that's interested, right? And this is a common conversation. I don't know about guys, but for girls, we talk about, well, I'm committed, but that guy, this guy is looking still. So how do you stay in that mindset of, this is where I'm going to continue to work towards, and everything else, I'm going to block it out? How do you block that out? Because I'm pretty sure y'all are getting all types of attention all around.
Well, it's easier in COVID.
Right.
I guess the DMs can still be popping. They not though, honey. They not. Good question, Latasia. Gotta have some humor. Well, I don't know. I just feel like so many people are shitty that it's easy to be like, you absolutely wouldn't do what Jason is gonna do for me. And I think oftentimes when we get anybody, we all can get caught up in like attention or fine, okay, and he's looking at me. But to me, you don't know what that person even is like, and personality, chemistry, that is all so important to me. I mean, I probably could marry a frog if he was like taking out the trash, like loving on me, and you're not a frog, dear. You're a bad one. So I'm like, and I think that Jason, you're fine. And I think Jason probably, I think me more than Jason, because like we even go to the gym together. And not, the gym, we work with the trainers. Shout out to Matt Scott. He got us right for the wedding and has continued, because Lord, I'll be 12,000 pounds COVID if it wasn't for him. But like, even in those spaces, I think it's a lot of men usually. There's some women sprinkled in, but I do think about that. Like, what is this like? What does it seem like? Jason just be over there like working out. He's like, look, I'm here to get what I came to do. And that's it. And so I think oftentimes, to me, you just block it out because you're like, they're probably nuts. Like, I can find something. I don't even have to know you very well and be like, you give me a lot of creepy vibes.
Yeah.
It's like, no. But I would look at Michael B. Jordan on the Instagram.
Oh, man, that's funny. So Adrian mentioned that I was screwed up about that. It's too expensive to get divorced, so that's why I'm just kidding. But really, I do think something that Adrian said is, I mean, Adrian does so much, and she fits so well perfectly. It's almost like a puzzle piece. She fits really well into my life, and we complement each other really well. And there's just no way in the world that I think that I would find anyone who would be as kind, as thoughtful, and does as many things as she does for us and for our house and for us. So, that's what I always think about. It's like, yeah, they may look good, but they ain't Adrian. So I think that that's always important to keep in the back back of my mind, and that's what I do because and I also think about too past relationships, and not to put anybody down, but when I think about what didn't work in those, and maybe what were some of the gaps and holes in all of those, I mean, and what I was looking for in a relationship, I mean, Adrian checks all those boxes, and so you don't want to mess with that. You got something good. You do not
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. I mean, because it's wild out here. We're not like, do not get back out here in these single streets. It's wild, but it's just so much negativity is being romanticized, and I just can't get over it. Like I spent like 10 years teaching healthy relationships, and then being able to see them, like watching you two interact. It's like I say, it's amazing because we don't really see it a lot. We grew up watching the Cosbys, the Winslows, the Bankses, and now, so I feel sorry for these generations of children coming up now, but it's so amazing and refreshing to see you two. You actually like each other. It's like, that's great. Like, you actually like each other, and then you're not intimidated by each other's careers. I miss a lot of stuff on social media. You can go like, well, if you're a woman, you shouldn't do this to get a man and all these things, but you're able to see the value in each other, and you treasure the value in each other. And I just want to say, just keep it up, keep doing what you're doing, because it's inspiring, especially for somebody like me who didn't get to see it a lot growing up. And so every chance I get to see it, I'm watching it. So I do thank you all for setting a great example of what real Black love is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
I know. And I'm so glad Joe did it, because I was going to cry if I was going to try to end this. Same way Adrian is a water bag, I am too. So
it's all good.
So because we have that personal relationship, I thought it was important to bring y'all up here. Like I keep saying, you're young, you're successful, and you made sure you did things appropriately according to what you wanted to do, and then evolved in your relationship as well. You didn't leave yourself behind in order to be with Jason or to be with Adrian.
Yes.
So I think that's one big thing that I want, younger generations to see, or even those who are out there right now. They may be the same age, they may be older. We can definitely use this to educate and counsel all.
Right.
It's a great example of sticking to yourself and, figuring out how to build together as well. So definitely appreciate you here.
Yes.
I'm not even gonna say no. I'm not gonna go sentimental on y'all today. So
she wants to.
I've been itching to go sentimental, but you definitely have been a great model in my life. So I know when I'm dealing with the bad and the ugly, I'd be like, look, this ain't like what Adrian and Jason got. You gotta go. Even to the point where y'all were giving each other turns and talking. Joe and I have been looking at all the couples, and we're like, look at how they're even talking during the
respect.
What? I remember people I dated where I would run over them, or they would run over me.
Right.
So this is completely different to see that healthy model as far as a relationship and being a couple and just communicating and all the things, all the great little nuggets that you provided along the way as far as how you made that balance work and so on. Those are definitely big things that I hope the people that are watching are taking home and jotting down themselves.
Exactly. And our viewing audience, one of the most important things that they said is they're not trying to change each other.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to understand, when you get into a relationship with somebody, that's who this person is. So to try to change them for what you want them to be, that's not gonna happen. You're wasting your time. And so the fact that you all love, like, and respect who you are as individuals and didn't try to change that, it's amazing. So just please keep that up.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you again for being here to the Stuckeys.
Mm-hmm.
And to everybody who has listened in, we appreciate you listening to the Tay and Joe Show.
There you go. There you go. Get it right. The Tay and Joe Show.
The Tay and Joe Show. And we hope you tune in for the next one. We have one more couple that we're going to cover for the Black Love series and Ode to Valentine's Day. But it will not be the last time you see us because we have so much to drag Joe into. And as long as he's willing to come with me, we going to keep it going.
Hey, I'm here.
So we'll see you next time. Thank you for coming.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.